Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast, it's a big night for J.D. Vance. Yeah, looks like it's time to debate that wacko from Minnesota. Also, there is a big, huge strike right now going around the country at all the ports of entry for all the ships. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they really know how to screw things up. I've got these stories and more, plus a big interview with Denny and somebody who's going to teach you all you need to know about communism coming to the United States. Get ready. It's a good one today, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. We're going to bring Denny in. He's going to have an interview with a woman who knows everything there is to know about communism and how it is that the America-China relationship stands today and how it may stand in the future, depending on who it is that we elect and how it is that we deal with China. There are warning bells that every American needs to hear in this interview, and I urge you to listen to it from start to finish. It is really, really interesting. Before we get into that, we have so many different things that are going on here today. It's a special Tuesday. So in addition to Dennis's interview that you're about to listen to, tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Dennis, Ryan, myself are going to be live in the studio for Team DML members only. If you are a Team DML member at 8:30 tonight, just log into your account at Team DML. You will see Ryan, Dennis, and myself live with you starting a half hour before the debate goes on. We'll be with you during the debate. You can watch the debate with us. If you're using the live chat, we will talk to you going back and forth. I'm actually going to even take some phone calls tonight. So you'll have the opportunity to talk to Dennis, myself, and Ryan while we're live in the studio. And then when the debate is over, we'll hang around for a half hour, give some analysis, and then again, take some of your questions and read some of your comments and maybe a phone call if we have time for it. That's tonight. If you're not a Team DML member, please consider it. We're only charging $30 for what would usually be $200 from now to the election for new members. So now is the time to jump in. Also, real quick to let you know, our promotion. We've had this great promotion. We're trying to get rid of the items in our warehouse because we will soon be moving to a new location. So we're trying to get rid of all the old stuff that's in there. It's not really that old. I mean, I'm going to tell you it's about something pretty new, but we're trying to get rid of any inventory we have that's non-CBD just to make the move a lot easier. It's the $10 special. Right now, the big item up there is Denny's book, The Wild Adventures of Robin and Summer. We released that last year. It did great on Amazon. It was one of the top books in the pets and fantasy stories or something else like that. Anybody who's read it said it is amazing. Usually that book would go for about $27. You could go in right now and get it for $10 at dmlcbd.com/store. Denny signs the book. In addition to that, you wind up getting a free bottle of DML CBD face serum. Use it every single day. Swear by it. Gets rid of those unwanted lines, unwanted spots. It is definitely great for hydrating the face. Like I said, I use it all the time. So many people use it all the time. They swear by it. One of our most popular products. The DML Foundation is sponsoring this to where we're giving away a free bottle with every one of these $10 doohickeys you buy. You're just going to wind up getting a free one. So you're getting the deal of a lifetime. The other thing that we just put up there, crazy as it is, good little story here. We started a softball team here locally, a Team DML softball team, and I had ordered shirts, and those shirts were apparently lost. So we just went out and we ordered new shirts. And then, would you have it, when the new shirts were ready, so too were the old shirts, they got found, if you will. So I told Ashley, put the shirts up. So here's the deal. These shirts are dry fit. They're amazing. Maybe I'll wear one tonight during the event. There's a few left. If you go in there, you can buy one for, I think it's $25. And if you buy it, you get two face serums for free. And that too is at dmlcbd.com/store. All right, real quick, before we bring Denny in with his interview, let me say this. There is a strike that's starting today at the ports. This is the sort of thing that you don't want happening when you're trying to recover from high prices, inflation. And basically, what's happening is the longshoremen are on strike, and the containers that you see that are carrying everything from food to furniture to car parts to boat parts to everything that we get from overseas is now going to be on a massive delay. For every single day that the strike is on, it causes a 6 to 7 day delay in terms of if you're waiting for products. So there are going to be many different businesses that are impacted by this. The American citizen, the American taxpayer, you are going to be impacted by this. Joe Biden could step in. He could step in right now and end it today. He has the powers to do that, but he says he's not going to get involved. Now, the reason why he's not getting involved is because obviously, these are union workers who are going on strike, and he doesn't want to lose his union vote. So he doesn't give a rat's ass about you or me, about how much money we're going to be spending on things like bananas or everything else that's going to wind up having a shortfall in terms of inventory readiness. He just cares about his damn election. What I hope happens, although it will be very painful for you and I to have to go through this. In fact, I told my wife, I said, go get a whole bunch of bananas and stick them in the freezer because I have a banana shake every single day. So what I hope happens is that the economy has a total kick in the nuts from now until November 5. So this way people wake the hell up and they don't vote for Biden-Harris, because that's what you're doing. When you pull the lever for Harris, you are voting not only for Harris, but you're voting again for Biden, because even though she wants you to believe that this is a new step forward with her, it's a step backward. It is more of the same. And, if you had somebody like President Trump, he would have gotten in front of this problem. It never would have happened. We wouldn't be having any kind of strike. These people would all be at work. We would be paying less money than we are now for almost everything. But because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can't find their asses with both hands, this is why we're in such a mess. The other thing I want you to think about as you're listening to this interview with Dennis, it is very compelling. Think about the idea of Kamala Harris actually winning this election. It's very scary. And it will be, as far as I'm concerned, the beginning steps of this country loading itself up with a communist sort of personality. And you will see slowly but surely that the people of this country, the majority of them, will wind up becoming so dependent on the United States of America's government, which is influenced by foreign actors every single day, including the Chinese. You will wind up seeing this country within the next 15 to 20 years push for communism to take over. I guarantee you that's what winds up happening if indeed Kamala Harris wins this election. We will have ourselves one hell of a time getting out of the mess, if we even can. So we're going to talk about some of this stuff tonight at the debate. We're definitely going to have a big show tomorrow, a live show tomorrow. We'll be talking about the debate, more about this whole issue with the ports, and talking more about Trump, who right now is raising money, thankfully, for the people of Tennessee and Carolina, all the people who are hurt, horribly hurt by Hurricane Helene. And the Biden administration is doing absolutely nothing to help mitigate against the lives that are being lost and against all the wages and the jobs that are being lost, the businesses that have been ruined. He's doing nothing to help the American citizens. And it's just anybody who supports that kind of thing has to have their head checked. As I say it all the time, they have to have their head checked. All right, without further ado, let me bring in Denny and his guest, who are going to talk to you about communist China and communist America. Strap yourself in, because it's all unfiltered.
We have a fantastic interview today with Xi Van Fleet. She's an author and a survivor of communist China. In fact, she grew up specifically under Mao Zedong's rule. And we're going to basically talk about her time during those days, her coming to America, basically her becoming an activist to highlight the warnings of how communism has already infiltrated America, and how someone like Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are going to springboard it as the mainstay, and just how the future is going to look with China and America on the world stage if communism becomes the way of the future. It's a very insightful. She also goes a little bit into the book she wrote, which I will say, I think you all need to check it out. It's called Mao's America, but it's a great interview. I'm excited to share it with you guys, especially ahead of the big debate tonight between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. So here we go. It's Xi Van Fleet. G. Van Fleet, thank you so much for being on the program today. I have a whole list of questions, and we'll try to get to all of them. And I know our audience is going to be really excited to hear your story. In fact, just so you know, too, we've actually had requests emailed in like, oh, you got to check her out. So really thank you for being here. And I just want to so in terms of the breakdown of what I have here, I kind of want to go through past, present, and what we could look to in the future. Regarding past, and I know you've talked extensively before on it, but with Mao's Cultural Revolution, I know you were a child and you grew up through it. Is there anything though you could recollect before the revolution took place with your life in China?
Yes, and that is something I describe in my book. I was not quite 7 when the Cultural Revolution started, and my recollection of before, and I say it's like a peace calm before the storm. And I could not really remember that much, but because Cultural Revolution was such an event, it turned my world and everybody's world upside down. And I absolutely remember the beginning. And then when I compare what I remember before, I can only describe as relative calm. There's no calm in Mao's China. There was a nonstop political campaigns. People die all the time because of the persecution. But as a child, that was relatively normal time. And that was before 1966. The whole Cultural Revolution lasted for 10 years. So I basically grew up during the Cultural Revolution. By the time Mao died, I was 17.
Wow. And, just for our audience, because I think a big thing I would like to talk to you about is familiarity with what happened, because I just think a lot of people aren't educated as to how that all unfolded. How would you describe overall Zedong Mao? I mean, was he someone who quickly rose to power? Was he always someone very well established in China? I mean, how would you framework him as a person?
Okay, it took 28 years for the CCP to succeed in taking over China. And Mao was a founding member of the CCP, but took him a while to get to the top. And eventually, I think it's in early 1940s, he established himself as the dominant leader, unchallengeable leader of the CCP. And before he was even successful in taking over China, he already started the cult of personality. And that was somewhere between 1945 to 1946. And then the revolution succeeded in 1949. So since then, that means before they took over China, he already was the unchallengeable leader of the party.
And when he did implement, the Cultural Revolution, was it more so a gradual process, or was it really something that it just, in a way, happened almost like overnight? Was it something that we're the next day? Yeah.
I have to explain because this is very hard to understand, even for the Chinese. Okay, so the CCP took over China in 1949, and Mao implemented non-stop, basically, political campaign, turned China upside down and tried to make it a socialist country, and by changing all the institutions, the system, and everything. So in the late 1950s, and he started this campaign called Great Leap Forward. And a lot of people probably heard here and there because and it was so disastrous. And what it did is he tried to surpass United States and United Kingdom in steel production. He believed he has 600 million people at his disposal just by pure manpower. He could achieve his goal. So steel, okay, it's nothing to do with modernized China and raise people's living standard. No, nothing to do with that. Steel, what you want steel? You want to have built a military power, right? So he put everybody in the task of making steel. Peasants, soldiers, city dwellers, kids, everybody had to do this, making steel. So they have a backyard furnace, and people don't know how to make steel, So what they do, they go through, they went through their household and get everything like a wok, doorknob, key, whatever, and throw into the furnace, and of course come back to junk. So at the end of that disastrous experiment, it failed miserably. Not just the project failed, the crops failed as well, because there's no one attending the crops. Everyone was making steel. So after that, there was a 3-year famine that killed up to 50 million Chinese. So even for a dictator like Mao, it was a big deal in the peacetime that many people died. So he was forced to admit that his policy was a mistake, and he has to step down. Not really step down, but he has to give power to someone else, and to run the economy, to recover. And so he's still the head of the state, but in actual entity, that he had to give up some of his power. And that
Right.
was 1962. And as a dictator, he could not take it. Yeah. Dictator has to be the one that in control all the time. So he used the next 4 years to plan and launch his second revolution. The first revolution was the one that taken over China. This one was also a revolution. Only this time he did not use military power. He did not use the army. He used a different kind of army, and that was the young people, the kids from schools.
Yes,
Yeah, from universities.
and I want to ask you about. Yeah, I want to ask you about that.
What they're
Yes,
called.
the Red Guards, correct?
The Red Guards.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he used them to overthrow his own government, his own institution, his own party, to replace whoever in power with the people he can trust. So that's what happened. And during the Cultural Revolution, is really taking down everyone in power supposedly from the grassroots. The grassroots, something like it's not his will, it's people's will. And so for that, he launched this he called Cultural Revolution, because this is not about military armed uprising. This is about culture to really erase everything that is traditional, that is Chinese. And so he called it 4 olds: old tradition, old ideas, old custom, and old habits. It is everything in the past that has to be erased. Why? Because he wants to once and for all install Maoism as the supreme religion in China. So that is a quick summary of how and why he launched his Cultural Revolution. And then, if I can just summarize so that we can talk about detail. Why? We know why. Power. It's nothing to do with ideology, nothing to do with better people's lives. It's about him getting his absolute power. And he seems to be successful in doing it, because during the process, he became a god. And his congregation was 6, by then it's like 800 million strong. Everyone has to be in his church. You have no option. And we have a little Bible, no other little mouse read little book. Yes.
And I think that is kind of the most perplexing part of this, right? Because when you hear of the Red Guards, you would think maybe it's some elaborate force work that he put together. But to what you just described, it was mostly young, indoctrinated citizens. And I think that's scary, because, I mean, it shows how much power he had over them in terms of that ideology. And to your point, when you start, if you take a day's time to eradicate, culture, whether it's artwork, whether it's textual things, you can really change the framework of how a nation's developed. So, with those Red Guards, I mean, was there any resistance? I mean, during your time there, did you see anyone actually try to fight back, in the sense of that they didn't want to go along with Mao's idea of what the country should be?
Well, that is a long story because it's a very complex story of the Red Guards. But in general, it is the young people overnight given the power by Mao to do basically whatever. Whatever means destruction, whatever means death. And so it's attraction to a lot of young people. So they're so indoctrinated, they regard Mao as their real parents. They regard Mao as their god. You do nothing but follow what your leader wants you to do. So for a lot of young people, it was attraction. Just like today, the BMMers, the Antifa, and the protesters we see since I don't know when, but at least 2020. And a lot of them went there for um, the excitement. Not everyone was there for the ideology, you know that, and for the excitement and for the power. Why? Here in America, like the last big protest by the pro-Hamas in DC, they were arrested. They did a lot of damage to the to Union Station. They defaced some of the statues. They were arrested, and they feel like that was their honor badge of honor, and they were released that same night. Right, the same day. They at night they know there's no consequence. Same with the Red Guards because Mao openly backed them up. Who can challenge them? Nobody. They were, this is absolutely astonishing that a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, all they need to do is wear a badge said Red Guards. They could do anything. They could kill people with no consequences. So the first killing by the Red Guards took place like 4 months after the launching of the Cultural Revolution, which was in May 1966. So in August, that's less than 4 months, like 3 months. And the first killing took place. Where? On campus. By middle school girls. And a bunch of them beat, tortured, and killed their principal.
That is just horrible.
And there is no consequence. And after that, violence just become commonplace. At the end of the Cultural Revolution, 20 million people lost their lives.
It's devastating. Like just knowing the fact that at least when I've gone through schooling, the education system, it almost seems like it's glossed over when we do talk about the Cultural Revolution under Mao. Whereas something like the Holocaust, I mean, that is something that you learn firsthand, and you know how many people, what happened. But I feel like the Cultural Revolution, which really, in my opinion, has dictated the course of where China has headed now and its relationship with the world, just seems to always be overlooked, and a lot of people just don't understand much about it. And that's the thing.
I have to add to it. It's by design.
It's by design.
It is absolutely by design. They don't teach the young people the horror of communism, and they don't teach them about Chinese communism, which is one of the most brutal communist regimes in the world. Then definitely don't teach the kids the Cultural Revolution because they don't want them to know. When you don't know history, you can never understand what's going on today.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, could you describe a little bit of the communes? And, just from what I've read too, I know you've described when you say going to the countryside, it's not something where you're going to like a frolicking farm. Like it's usually, some kind of camp or some kind of internment where they're forcing you to do things. I mean, would you be able to describe that a little bit?
Yeah, it is the same time that he launched the Great Leap Forward. He also launched another campaign which called the People's Commune. After they took over China, one of the first political campaigns they launched was the land reform, because he promised hundreds of million peasants to join his revolution with the promise that he will give them free land. So the first thing he did is he mobilized the peasants and so confiscated the land from the landowners, and in the process killed more than 2 million landlords. They were killed because they were considered the enemy of the state, and their crime is they had wealth. Okay, so they did that, And then the peasants were happy. They all got some land, right? Oh, finally, it's worth it. It's worth it supporting the communists. Well, 5 years later, Mao said, no, 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 no. You don't need land and work on a little plot by yourself. Let's have communes. We all own the land. People's commune. And this would be happy, we all work together. Sound familiar? We work together for a common goal. And then so all the land was taken back. All the land. And it lasted until today. In China, there's no one person owns an inch of the land. It all owned by the party, by the state. And so that is the commune. So when I graduated from high school, that was towards the end of the Cultural Revolution. Everything was really ruined. There's no economy. And what you do with all these young people, they don't want to have red guards. Then that was like considered problem. The young people were considered problem. They're all sent to the countryside. I try to warn people, don't think countryside is something pretty in America. No, countryside means people's commune. The commune basically is a collective living, and you do the most primitive work, and you are told what to do, and you get at the end of the harvest season, you get a little bit of whatever you produce. Most of it were taken by the state. So it's like a labor camp in many ways, even though it's not formally called labor camp, but the effect is the same.
Right. I mean, just in general, it just from everything you're describing, from what you went through, and just seeing it in the back view perspective, it really was a complete stamp out of all things capitalism. I mean, instead of owning property, you became a property of the state, and essentially, yes.
The other thing, you have to do it. You don't have a choice.
Right.
And that is another thing. Like I choose to go to the countryside and work in a commune. No, everything was forced by the government. And that's what the Kamala doesn't tell you. And if the government had to do something, it's always by force.
Right.
Well, I know a little bit about this, but maybe just for our audience, because I know they would be very curious, just moving into present day now, would you be able, or leading up to present day, would you be able to maybe just surmise your journey as to coming to America? And was it so much a culture shock, or how was that experience when you first came over here?
Yeah, and I also described that in my book. And so, well, it's a long story. Anyway, so when I was 17, Mao died. So that marked the end of the Cultural Revolution. So eventually, China started to open up, and I was able to go to college. In 1986, I was able to come here. And so I was not a refugee. I tried to tell people. And by then, China started to open up. And I came here as a student. So not a boat person. Someone said, oh, boat, you come out of the boat. No. I actually flew here. But anyway, and even though towards the end of my life in China, and things started to open up, and I was able to get information about the outside world, and we start to get American movies. So I had some understanding what the life was like here. And of course, and my dream was one day I could go there. So there's a lot of culture shocks, and as you can imagine, from two different systems. And so I always summarize the first, one of the most memorable shocks was choices. And I just, as I described, in China, I never get to choose to do anything. I was always told to do this and that, and forced to do this and that. And so coming here, and freedom sometimes can be scary, and you have to make your own choices. And then on the other hand, you have to be responsible for the consequences of your choices. A lot of people don't think about it. In China, I don't have the choice, so I say, well, whatever happened is because I was forced to do this. And that was a big shock. Now you have to be responsible for your consequences of your choice. And so freedom, as I understand it, freedom is your ability to choose what you want to do, but you also have to be responsible.
Right. Uh, have you returned to China since then? And how much has changed since those days, especially now under Xi Jinping's leadership?
Yeah, of course, my family is there, so I go back regularly. The last time I went back is 2020, and I caught the last flight back to Dallas when Trump um, banned an incoming flight from
Yeah.
China. And but since then, I haven't been able to go back, and I don't think I want to go back. With what I'm doing here, I don't feel safe going back.
I don't blame you. I know you, just from being
So
outspoken.
I
Yeah.
can tell you, so it's not like I just left China behind me. I have a close ties, so I go back regularly. And even me, I have to say, even me misunderstood and the CCP and thinking maybe by opening China, it will transform itself into a democracy. Even after the Tiananmen Square massacre, I still feel maybe there's a chance because when I went back in the 90s, and I could see that there was an opening up, and the people were talking more openly and about what's in their mind. During the Cultural Revolution, every word come out of the other person's mouth, it's filtered and filtered and filtered. It's all censorship, self-censorship. You'd never know the truth. But now I could see that people are opening up. So I really have high hope. And so I'm not saying that I was so wise. I knew that that won't work. No, I was among many, many, and believe that maybe China will transform. And of course, we see what happened. So Xi Jinping, okay, what the time period when it's opened up, and it was also a period of unprecedented corruption because all the wealth came created by the Chinese cheap laborers by really destroying China's environment, and all the wealth was created, and 5% of them were ended up in the hands of the CCP officials, the new rulers, and the ordinary people get just whatever left over. So there was a big resentment, and Xi Jinping saw this as a sign that the CCP will really will run the risk of being overthrown by the people because the anger, the resentment was also unprecedented. So he saw that as an opportunity. So he promised people, let me in, and I will be the leader. I will get rid of the corruption, and he did. And people said, "Wow, okay, now he was after all those corrupted officials," and people were cheering him on until they realized all those people that he purged was his political enemy.
Huh.
So he was really doing it for his own benefit, sort of
yes.
say.
And then he became unchallenged
Well, and
leader, and eventually changed the constitution
Yes.
and get rid of the term limit.
Well, I think one of the best way, or not best, but I think one of the strongest ways he's been able to remain unchallenged and at least unchecked has been this implementation of social credit systems, which that's actually a question we get often from our viewers and listeners. Is America heading to that degree where it's going to be based on your social status and who you agree with and who you disagree with, where you could get approved for a loan or approved to attend a certain event? And I think what we see going on with China with that system definitely raises some eyebrows here as to, is this going to be maybe the way of the world where we run on a universal social credit system?
I would say don't raise your eyebrow. Be scared to death because it's coming here and it's here already. So what Xi Jinping did is after what I described, is to really bring back the Cultural Revolution, bring back the censorship, bring back the tightly control of what people think, what people say, and what people do. And so that's, during the Cultural Revolution, Mao did not have that kind of technology. He relied on people reporting each other. And so the children will report on their parents, and a neighbor to neighbor, husband to wives. It's like at that time, everyone considered everyone else as a potential danger, almost like a COVID time. You see a human being, think about virus, and in the culture of think another human being, think about possibly a spy. But now Xi Jinping did not have to bother with that. He has the technology, and the technology is such that before you make a move, never say you organized some movement. Before you make a move, just because you said something on social media, they have profile, and if they consider you a danger, and you go and to the train station, you found that you can't buy train ticket. You go to the airport, you can't, and eventually you can't, because everything is digital, and they can freeze your bank account. You cannot do anything. They don't have to use police. They don't have to use the army. They don't have to use other people. You just become really can function in the society.
Right. Well,
And it's here.
Yeah,
It is
it's here.
It's just gradual, but I would say, this is probably a pretty good way to predict what's going to happen. China first, California second, and then the rest of the country.
Rest of the country.
Of course,
well, look,
free world.
Yeah, and I know we kind of just touched upon it. I know you've touched upon it a lot with your discussions. I think one of the biggest reasons that we are, this meaning America, is falling into that direction is because of our education system or lack thereof. I mean, I'm watching videos of people close to my age in their 20s marching through the streets of Philadelphia, and even in one case, Brooklyn, spearheading the communist flag, the sickle. And I'm just wondering, because is it, when I went through schooling, there was almost like an outrageousness to McCarthy and McCarthyism, because he was trying to point out signs of communism. And then when you kind of look in the back view mirror now, you may realize, like, okay, well, maybe there were pinpoints and flags throughout our history that are showcasing that this was going this direction. And yet our education system never took the time of day to really say, hey, here are the dangers of communism, and here's a concrete real world example of what happened in China under Mao, of how communism devastated this country and devastated an entire culture, because China has had a beautiful culture through centuries, and he wanted to take that over and over a night. So, I mean, what would you say on the status of our education system now, of how maybe it could be improved, or is it just too late? Because I just feel there are too many people who are falling into that trap, believing that communism is this untested idea that could do us good.
Actually, if you're going back, what happened today, it did not happen overnight. It took decades, and we can kind of pin down. And when it happen? It happened at least one place, that is Columbia University Teachers College in the 30s. And then back then, the college president was Jiang Dui, and he was really instrumental of transform the public education into a social agent. So it's no longer about education; it become indoctrination. And so, that was 30s, and it's almost a century. And now we find ourselves in a situation that we no longer have any control of our school systems. And the way that school system design was like Jiang Dui's vision. And it is a social experiment there. They want to indoctrinate the kids, not become a citizen, but become an activist.
An activist.
Yeah. And also, and we can also say it is probably in the 1960s that the universities has been taken over by the Marxists. And where do we get our teacher? Where do we get our teacher? From universities, from college that run by the Marxists. So we have a pipeline of supply of Marxists who become not just teachers, they become the journalists, they become our political leaders, they become our CEOs. They all come from the same place. So it's not like an education failure, it's a success. The success for the Marxists. So that's why we find ourselves in dire situation. We look around and we just see so many people just absolutely, their mind was molded by this ideology, which is oppressor versus oppressed, typical Marxist way of thinking. And then they don't no longer have the moral guidance. And then there's this, who is the oppressed, who is the oppressed? Oppressor, bad, oppressed, good. And so that's where we're today.
And speaking of today specifically, right? Because with the timing of me interviewing you, later is going to be the vice presidential debate with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. And my concern with Tim Walz, I mean, I have concerns with him and Kamala Harris, but he does try to portray himself as this everyday guy, that he fights for the people, and that he's got no strings attached. And yet, when you look at his history, he's done 30 plus trips over to China to meet with CCP officials. Now, I would actually love to go to China one day because I'm fascinated by the culture and the architecture, and I would love to see just, the landscape there. And how you said you went back in 2020 to see family and friends. But for me, looking at Tim Walz, if you're going back 30 times, that usually translates to you have some business going on there. And there has been a lot of speculation as to why is our vice presidential or possible vice president going over there so much, and what are the discussions he's having over there. And it concerns me because I know his mindset and Kamala Harris's mindset is not for the benefit of this country. So have you had any concerns as to maybe why is Walz going over there so much?
First of all, I have to say that since I start speaking up and I warn American, what's happening here is a communist takeover. And today in 2024, we have two communists who are the presidential candidate for White House. That's how things have turned out to be. It is absolutely scary. It is, I don't think people should just raise their eyebrows. People should be scared to death that our country in in a little more than a month might turn into a communist regime. And to me, there's no doubt both of them are communists or Marxists, and Tim Walz especially. So his tie with China started, and really in a time, and it's 1989 when the Tiananmen Square massacre took place. He went after that that massacre. Okay, so at this time, a lot of foreign businessmen, teachers left China in protest. He went there. He said, "I want to see I want to see with my own eye what's going on there." And he did. He loved it. He loved it so much that he chose June 4th as his wedding day. That was the day of the massacre. And he celebrated his wedding anniversary and brought his wife back to Tiananmen Square where the massacre took place. And there's two types of people who have strong ties with the CCP. Some is really financial. They just love to be able to get money from the CCP. And I'm not sure Tim Walz is one of them. He went back China 30 some times, taking his took his student with him. He wanted his students to appreciate what he likes, and that is the socialist system, the communist system. And so to me, he likes China is because he on the same ideological agreement. He really is a communist. there's no evidence so far. I don't know that he profit big deal financially from his tie with CCP. It is ideological. So in many ways, it's more dangerous.
And I was going to say, I mean, and just from everything you've described, as you're describing it, I can almost envision the parallels of what you lived and experienced through, and quite literally the ideas that him and Kamala have and what they would try to implement. You know, the idea that, you know, everyone should be sharing the same thing rather than the individual ownership, such as property, or how you even frameworked it, choices. It almost seems like they are the party of how do we strip the choices away so that it's just one universal rule. And I find that terrifying, as you said. And in fact, this next question almost can maybe seem a little psychological in a way, because when you look at Mao, when you look at Lenin, Stalin, even Fidel Castro, what is it with these leaders that attracts them so much to the idea of communism, even if it doesn't start out as communism, whether it's socialism, because socialism is really the gateway drug to communism. So what is it that leads them to wanting to get that kind of system in place, even though they know in the long run their people, their citizens, are going to absolutely hate it? What is it that attracts them to that mindset?
Okay, so I think a lot of people attracted to the idea of communism, and in the very beginning, maybe good intention, like for Mao's, in Mao's case, and there were a lot of young people like him, intellectuals. They're not poor peasants, they're not poor factory workers. They're all intellectuals from good family, from a well-to-do family. And in China's case, is this newfound nationalism, and they want to save China from the oppression of the foreign imperialists. So I think that was the original attraction. Might be good intention, but soon once you get into it, you realize that this is a path to power. And I think eventually, like Castro, like Lenin, and they all found that's the best way to be to a best path to ultimate power. And eventually, every one of them, every one of the so-called communist leaders, they're all in for one thing, for power. But in order for them to have this revolution going and to get a new recruit, they have to use tactics to attract them. So they know what they want, but then they attract, I think, three type of people. They attract, in China especially, 95% of the peasants, and tell them, if you follow me, you're going to get free land and you're going to get free stuff. We're going to protect you. And then in China's case, there are a lot of educated youth. They want to help to make China a better world. They want to help those people who haven't realized that socialism is the solution to China's problems. So they were there, like they know the best way for the Chinese people, and so they're the second group of people, and that attracted to communism. And the communists rely these people to help them to succeed in the revolution. And here in America, the same thing. And what is the communists or the Marxists or Democratic party that attracted so many people? Those who want free peace from the government, those who want to be taken care of, protected by the government, because they keep telling so many people you're marginalized. You're marginalized. First, it's the black people, and then brown people, then minorities, then women, then immigrants, then LGBTQ, RST. I don't know. Just this. So come to follow me. I will protect them, protect all of you. And then the other group. Who are the other group? The white liberals.
The white liberals. Yeah.
They're the ones. They think that they know better. They know better what's the best way for the rest of you to live. And they come in for what? For virtue. And then they can tell themselves, or they can show the people around them, they are the ones who have virtue, and they are the ones who want to help the oppressed people. That's why it is attractive. And then, of course, people don't know history. If you know any bit of history of what happened under communism, you know they use the same tactics over and over and over, and the result is always the same. Everybody, including the supporters, end up being depressed.
You see, and this is why I want to talk about your book a little bit, because I think I would rather almost put your book in the hands of a young student rather than anything we're teaching in our current schools right now, because I think, as we've talked about, the schools filter it and water it down so much, whereas you have firsthand experience and you're also just very knowledgeable about how these governmental systems eventually crumble into the communistic mindset. So, I want you to talk about your book and then also maybe relay it to, like, what would your advice be to someone who wants to learn more about communism for the sake of, how do I know about a system that I don't want to be implemented here in my own country?
I would say there's my book is an introduction to to understand communism, and my book is really very easy to read, and it's really parallels between what happened in China, what happened to me, and what's going on in America. And there are a lot of books. I mean, tens of thousands. I don't know about China, CCP history. A lot of them are scholarly, and and I think the reason that I think my book made an impact is because it is for everybody. It's not for people who are interested just in history. It is really easy to read, and everybody can relate to, because I compare these two revolutions. One happened in China 50 years ago. One is ongoing today. So everyone can recognize and say, yes, it happened. This happened to me. This happened in our country. And then they learn, oh my God, the same thing happened in China. So it's nothing new, and nothing new under the sun. It's history repeating.
Repeating. And can you tell our audience the name of your book just so they know when they want to check it out?
And the title is Mao's America, a survivor's warning. And please get it and read it and share it. And that's how we save America, because we can't save America if we don't even understand what is the threat, the danger that we're facing. And also, please follow me on X. I tweet every day, and I tweet about historical stories and events, and remind people, same thing, history is repeating. It's my X handle is X Van Fleet, XVANFLEET.
Wow. What an interview. What an interview that was. Dennis is really, I'll tell you, Denny, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of how it is that he now is conducting these interviews. I have taught him well. In fact, I think he's going to wind up stealing my job from me if this continues. Anyway, we're going to be with you tonight. Like I said, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you log on to teamdml.com. You can do that via your desktop or via the app using the Interact tab. Go to the top. It's where it says Team DML Memberships. Click it, log in, and you will see us there. Don't forget to get in there early, because the live chat only takes a certain amount of live chats at a time. And so you don't want to be on the sidelines where you're just watching and not being able to participate. Again, I will make notices available to you later tonight about being able to call in and speak to us, or we'll call you and speak to you about what's going on with J.D. Vance and Mr. Walls and all that is part of the debate. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. So that's 8:30, and we will be with you 1/2 hour after the debate is over, and we will be with you live as it's going on. I'll be drinking a little bit of wine. We're going to be doing it at the Wine and Talk set, so you should have some fun with that. Also, don't forget dmlcbd.com/store. You get the $10 item. We send you not only the item, which is highly discounted, we send you a free bottle of DML CBD face serum. Also, don't forget, I told you we have a couple of shirts up there that are left. You can get them, Team DML shirts. They're brand new. I've just got them in, and they are dry fit. You can get them for just $25, and we give you 2 bottles of face serum with that purchase. dmlcbd.com/store. Until the next time, may God bless you, our troops, these United States, and a buddy of mine who now listens to the podcast, Bill. His son is sick, so I'm sending out a prayer for Bill's son. We'll talk to you soon, actually tonight.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DMail News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and team DMail.